to begin with the breaking news overnight. A potential economic crisis averted. U.S. ports getting back on track this morning after dock workers struck a tentative deal to end their strike. NBC's senior business correspondent Christine Roman's been all over this story. Christine, good morning, and what are the details?
Yes, good morning to both of you. You know, starting today, tens of thousands of union workers will return back to work after heading to the picket line on Tuesday. It's good news because the shutdown could cost the U.S. economy up to $4.5 billion a day, and a lengthy strike could have led to higher prices and shortages of goods ahead of the holiday season. The union released a statement on Thursday expressing they had reached a tentative agreement on wages, and they've agreed to extend the master contract until January 15th. That's when they said they'll return to the bargaining table to negotiate all the other outstanding issues. So here's what we know so far. Sources telling CNBC that under this tentative deal, workers will see a near 62% wage hike over the course of 6 years. The union, remember, had originally asked for 77%. This increase would potentially raise the top longshoreman's wage to just over $63 an hour at the end of that 6-year deal. That's an increase from $39 an hour. Now, NBC News has reached out to the union for any more details, but have not heard back. Now, President Biden also reacting to this deal, applauding the news, applauding both sides for coming together to reopen these ports, stating that Thursday's tentative deal represents critical progress toward a strong contract.
Well, it's crisis averted for now, but it's kind of kicking the can down the road, and there are these outstanding issues, which sounds like trouble. So what does that include?
You know, one of the biggest concerns right now, guys, is port automation, which is still under negotiation. What we're hearing from the dock workers is there is a big urgency here to protect their jobs against this fast-moving technology. But you guys, the timing here is really important because we were already starting to see people kind of panic buying. You were starting to see skimpy store shelves in parts of the country because people were worried with COVID, the experience of COVID still fresh in their minds about shortages down the road. So you were starting to see some panic buying. Now these workers are back to work, and they'll start, working through this backlog now.
All right, so ended abruptly, and if you don't think that Biden or the government had something to do with this ending abruptly, you're sadly mistaken. You know that it was probably a phone call from Biden to the mob boss, as it were, of the union workers who knew Biden personally, and they all have his phone number, that we all understand that this is just a copycat of the situation that happened with the UAW and Stellantis and the Big Three. It's just a copycat. They're kicking the can down the road, and it's going to end up hurting the dock workers more than they think, because there's no stopping automation from becoming predominant in these situations. There's no way to stop companies from investing in the automation industry. It's think about the whole electric vehicle industry. They tried to stop that. It's not stopping. It's the future. It's innovation. It's technology. This is what happens. There's nothing. You just have to work around it. And I get it. I don't. No one likes change per se, and no one wants to, even have to worry about this type of thing. But the fact is that it's coming, and there's no really way to stop it. And this is just, like they said, kicking the can down the road. There's no situation that you could say where this is the end all be all of this situation. Computer tripping. Because they didn't get what they wanted. They didn't address the automation situation, which is the biggest thing, and they're not going to, because they know that that's not going to change. You're going to have to deal with this automation one way or another. What do they say? 6 years. You could total of $63 in 6 years. That's really not very much. That's what electricians and plumbers make out of New York now. More than that. So it's still a sad situation, and it's not over. It's not over. We want to think it's over, but it's not. Real quick, we're gonna read what Automotive News, our favorite place for information, has to say about this, and then I'm gonna let you guys out of here. All right. Pork strikes and averts potential calamity for auto supply chain. Analysts anticipate a few supply chain issues as longshoremen return to work, though it will take a few weeks for port activity to return to normal. And this is from October 4th by John Irwin. The auto industry avoided months of potential supply chain bottlenecks and backlogs when the port strike on the eastern Gulf Coast ended after just 3 days. Automakers and suppliers dodged massive ripple effects that would have stemmed from a work stoppage that lasted even 1 week, analysts said. We should see very little impact to operations, said Michelle Drew Rodriguez, a partner at Consult Roland Berger's Chicago office. Dock workers returned October 4th, 3 days after strike impacting 36 ports from Maine to Texas began. The International Longshoremen's Association Union, which represents 45,000 port workers, and the U.S. Maritime Alliance Employer Group reached a tentative agreement on wages and agreed to extend the current master agreement until January 15th while negotiations continue on other issues. The strike threatened to deliver a major shock to global supply chains. The ports impacted by the strike accounted for about $37.8 billion of vehicle imports during 12 months ended June 30th, 2024, according to S&P Global Market Intelligence. About 70% of U.S. auto parts imports are also handled there, according to Alex Partners. This week has underscored the role a strong U.S. supply base plays in the national economy and our global competitiveness, said Bill Long, CEO of MEMA, which represents companies in the automotive supply chain, in a statement. The tentative agreement is for a wage hike for around 62%, a source familiar with the matter told Reuters. The employer group have offered a 50% raise leading up to the strike, far below the 77% the workers' union requested. Analysts had warned that a strike extending beyond even a week or so could prove extremely costly to the auto industry. A strike that long would force automakers and suppliers to seek alternate routes for shipping vehicles and parts. Shipping to ports in Canada or Mexico divert to the West Coast or non-union ports in the East, or delivering by air. Most of those options add significant costs and complexity to automotive supply chains, issues that a lengthy strike would have compounded, analysts said. Companies feared supply chain bottlenecks would eventually lead to sporadic assembly plant shutdowns in North America, and dealers monitored the impact of the strike on imported vehicle inventory, particularly for union brands such as European brands such as Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Volkswagen, clearing the backlog. Those threats have receded, but potential snags remain. The 3-day strike means it will take about 3 weeks for backlogs to clear and for port operations to return to normal, according to Everstream Analytics. 3 days turns into 3 weeks? That's crazy. Dock workers were already making progress the morning after the tentative agreement. The number of container ships waiting outside eastern Gulf Coast ports decreased to 54 the morning of October 4th, after peaking at 59 the day before, as ships began moving into ports in anticipation of working resuming, Everstream said. In comparison, just 3 vessels waited to unload at ports before the strike began on September 29th. About 386,000 20-foot equivalent cargo containers are waiting on ships outside those ports on October 4th, down from 406,000 a day earlier, Upstream said. Damn. As ports sort through their backlogs, the auto industry should escape with few issues, said Sam Farini, Vice President of Global Vehicle Forecasting at Auto Forecast Solutions. Planned contingencies in the supply chain and with vehicle deliveries should mean a quick return to normal, he said. The strike served as a fire drill for the industry, said Dan Hershich, America's leader of the automotive and industrial practice at Alex Partners. You practice fire drills so that when something really happens, you're ready for it, he said. Companies that paid attention well ahead of time were able to get inventory in place, now see that they're likely to read for an event like this in the future, he said. Those that didn't and lost sleep, I bet they're getting really serious about their plans, he said. This could really hit them next time. And there will be a next time. External shocks to the supply chain are happening rapidly and will require companies to be adaptable, said Roland Berger's Rodriguez. Those that are able to proactively identify and reduce disruption will win, she said. As companies prepare for the new January 15th deadline, the strike should be a reminder of how important dock workers are to the global supply chain, Farini said. The hope remains that the brief interruption will be all that's necessary to get a contract signed. And that is that. All right, so What are we talking about? They gave them a little bit of money. They told them, hey, this other stuff, we'll holler at you in about January. We'll let you know. And they're going to let them know now. Because they can't stop automation. They can't give them 77%. They probably couldn't even give them the 63% they gave them. And they're not going to see that until they start collecting these checks with those amounts. Now, mind you, if 63% over 6 years really can be cut down a decent amount so it doesn't hurt in the beginning, just like the UAW situation. But though that was kind of immediate. In this situation, they got a little time to work with. They could play around a little bit with it. But that was the same situation with the UAW. You see where I'm going with this? I'm telling y'all, our world is, the American way of life is crumbling. And we're watching it in real time. We watched the UAW and the Stellantis and the Big Three crumble the automotive industry. We're about to watch the longshoremen and the ports crumble the import-export industry. What's next? You know what? They don't accept our dollar in a whole bunch of countries now. Man, look. I don't know if it's America becoming weaker or America just making a whole bunch of bad decisions. But we are in a downward spiral that has not lit up for quite some time, guys. And and what happened, and by January 15th, what's going to be? Is the president going to be elected by then? I'm telling y'all, man. When they talking about shit over there, look the other way. Because it's always a distraction from something else. You see, we ain't talked about P. Diddy. All right, guys, I'm out of here. This is Chris Surratt. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Car Concierge Show. Please like, share, subscribe, check out the show, check out the other episodes, and I'm out. Peace.